Hi, Kara.
Hello, how are you?
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm good. Hi, James.
Oh, yeah.
So let me share my screen while we wait others. So you can see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. So as usual, if you can type in your name on the document, that would be good.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey,
So the agenda looks similar to the last one, and I added an additional topic to the agenda. The co-chair is an additional topic which we need to have a quick conversation around. And then it would perhaps be good to have a recap of the update we provided to talk last week, and maybe it is better Tracy or others who were in that meeting to share the response from talk rather than me saying, oh, it was great. So we have some objective thoughts on that. And then I think we need to work on the roadmap, and I added a proposal there directly on the document to perhaps decide how we can, or start talking about how we can work on some of the topics we have been talking during last couple of meetings within the SIG, followed by a presentation from Christy on Tecton Catalog and Tecton Hub. And please add any topic you want to discuss directly on the agenda, and we need to, again, give 30 minutes to Christy. And if the topic you want to propose doesn't take like more than 3 minutes, we can take it before Christy's presentation. But otherwise, we can take that topic during the upcoming meeting. So let's see. I think we can start. We have 11 people in the meeting. I don't remember any action point from the previous meeting. Let me check. No, I think the only action point was on Stefan to upload the slides to store the slides on CDF presentation repository, which happened already. So we can skip action point review, action item review, and move to the next topic, which is a topic we discussed before a few weeks ago and agreed to adopt co-chair setup for the SIG. And Christy is with us today. Maybe Christy, you want to talk about the situation with your workload, and then we continue from there.
Sure. So I think, can everyone hear me? First of all, I'm using the web interface with Zoom and I don't trust it.
Yeah, I can.
Anyone hear me? Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, so I was really excited to be the co-chair for the SIG, and I think that this SIG is really important, but I've just been looking at my schedule and I just don't think I can devote enough time to this to continue to be the co-chair. So basically, if anyone else is interested in taking my position, I would really appreciate that. I'm hoping that folks on my team will continue to participate, and I want to set up a rotation with my team to make sure that someone from Tecton is always attending, because we're really interested in the SIG. But yeah, I have to step away from the position, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks, Christy. So this brings us back to the original question we asked a few weeks ago to see if anyone is interested to be co-chair or volunteer on this. And I am not expecting anyone to just step up right now and say, yes, I want to do that, even though you can do that, but that is not the expectation. It is basically kicking off the nomination period again, perhaps, which we can do via mail on the mail list tomorrow, and then give a week time for people to think, and then announce their interest as co-chair. And then during the next meeting in 2 weeks, you can say, yes, this person stepped up and want to be co-chair. And then we are done with it like the last time. And given the history, I don't think we need to have any election or anything, assuming we will have 1 or 2 more people volunteering on this. But if we have more than 2, perhaps, then we may need to go to an election, like the usual open way. Any comments on this? First, perhaps I should ask any volunteers if you made your mind already. Okay, so I simply type agree and say nomination period will start tomorrow, which is 15th of May on the SIG mail list. So, any last comments on this? Okay, so let's move. I will send a mail on the mail list and describe what we discussed right now, what I was talking about last few minutes, and then let's see what happens on mail list. So the next topic is SIG update to talk. This presentation, which has been here since the previous meeting, and we presented, or I presented this to technical oversight committee during last week. And before I say what I think Tracy, you were there. What do you think the response of talk to SIG?
It was great. Yeah, no, that was well received, and they were pretty happy to hear all the exciting things that we're up to.
Okay, let me find the talk, and they were happy. Okay. It's always great to get feedback from people a bit outside of what we are doing or what we have been talking about or what we are working with. And I think we should continue providing regular updates, talk maybe quarterly updates or every few weeks. And it could perhaps make it even better if next time someone else can take this and provide the update by looking at from different perspectives. So you can also talk and see who is there and what kind of questions they ask and what are they interested in. So that was the topic, and this will be a topic during one of the upcoming meetings, as I mentioned, and then we discuss what can we provide updates about to talk. So SIG outreach, and I don't see who put that there, so please, whoever.
Sorry, that was me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, if folks did not see the interoperability newsletter that went out, so I've linked to the archive there, but do check it out, some really great articles, including our CICD Rosetta Stone and how we're working towards establishing a shared vocabulary. And also yesterday we had a CDF members meeting, and I had a couple of slides on the interoperability group. So if anyone is joining off the back of that, welcome to your first interoperability SIG. But yeah, no, I think just nice to keep spreading the word. And every time we do, people are pretty excited about our mission in this group.
Hey, any questions about the outreach or the newsletter? And if I am not mistaken, the June issue of the newsletter will focus on MLOps, or was it?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, I think this might still be a slot or two in there. So if anybody's interested in writing something, just reach out to Jackie or myself.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So moving to the next topic, I think the roadmap is one of the important things we need to have some kind of settlement with, because Tracy started the roadmap work a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, and there are already things which we can start or we can talk about and agree on and perhaps start working with them. So let me open the roadmap document. And you can see the document right now, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So the first parts, like overview of charter and outcomes, I think they have been same as they were before. So there is no update there. And time horizons, so that is, I think it's a good way to take the roadmap work. And the first item, which is what we have been doing last few weeks, knowledge transfer of CI/CD tools. So we have presentations from different projects and end users, and I think, at least I personally think, we have good idea about what the different projects offer, what kind of capabilities they have, what they are working with, and we will continue having these presentations, obviously. But looking at what we did last few weeks made me realize maybe it is time to identify a few focus areas based on what we heard from projects and users. And I put some of the examples there, and then some example use cases followed by some areas that were discussed during our previous meetings. And the use cases and the areas I listed there is followed by a proposal about how we can work with these different areas. So I'm just going to stop right now and give people to look at those areas and the proposal to see if it makes sense. And then we can perhaps start a conversation on the mail list and take yet another discussion to see if the way that is proposed on the document makes sense or not. And I explicitly put that before standardized frameworks, because it feels like it would be better to have a bit more structure around what we are working with before we start talking about standardization. And expectation could be like one of those areas could perhaps match to standardized framework topic, and then that can be focused on to work on even further. So yeah, sorry for last minute updates to the document, but yeah, that's what we do in open source generally. So the first bullet point is five pipeline standardization languages, and this actually comes from one of the comments to the pull request we had when we proposed the formation of the SIG to Technical Oversight Committee, and I think it was Tom from Lumina Networks. He was talking about some kind of standardization across pipeline languages or migration from one tool to other, and how to make it easier for the users. And that made me think and to put as an area to focus on, seeing that we have people interested in it. And the second area is event-driven approach to CI/CD, and the examples are Tecton, Captain, and Eiffel. They all talk about events as the way to drive the CI/CD workflows. And the third area I put there as a proposal is the integration with the tools that are not traditionally seen as CI/CD tools, such as artifact repository managers like Artifactory, Nexus, Git, GitHub, Gerrit, GitLab, and so on. And yeah, maybe I should stop right now. Any comments?
Are you proposing this as a focus for this SIG? So in the past weeks, we've done presentations and introductions from the different projects. And now you're saying we should shift to considering these topics. Is that what this proposal says?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm so sad that James just stepped away, because one of the things he and I have been talking about is it would be nice to do, and this may fit into the format you're suggesting, it would be nice to do, and we were thinking a monthly get together where we talked about certain elements that the different CI/CD tools have in common. And the way that we were thinking of grouping them was just around either common components or common issues they're dealing with, like webhooks or whatever. But I actually think it's a way of thinking that seems to be more in line with what you're proposing here.
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, like webhooks, that could be another area to focus. And the following paragraph actually proposes how we could work with this. Like if we assume like we agree on these 4 areas, like pipeline standardization, languages, event-driven approach, integration with the other tools, and the webhooks, for example, one approach this could be to create like work streams on these different areas, assuming we have people interested in these different areas. And those people can come together, look at what is happening in different projects, and work on that area in a more focused way, rather than just saying, let's solve all the problems in interoperability. So we get some focus and some really people who really think that problem, that specific problem, needs to be worked on, and the work that's happening in the domain collected together and then worked on them further. And the other thing I noted here is like the expectation or the outcome of these work streams don't have to solve the problem. It could be just like collecting the state of things in a specific area from different projects or from users, and just documenting that and say, this is what is happening in this specific area, and this is what we are hearing from our users, to attract more interest. Or some work streams could go even further and propose solutions for some of the problems.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to see us start tackling some of the nitty-gritty of this and working to actually solving some of these challenges. I'd love to actually get some input, Ramin, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, from another end user perspective. What's kind of one of the most valuable things we can do as a community here?
Well, I need to spend a little more time looking at exactly what's required, and so give me a little more chance to take a look at that, and I can provide some input for you guys next time, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think just what kind of problems that we could solve, what I guess to just helping us prioritize which areas you think, are already kind of done and dusted and not likely to change, and which ones are kind of evolving, so perhaps makes more sense. So any direction on that would be useful. Sure.
Yeah. The biggest area that we here at eBay are I don't want to say struggling with, but just having challenges with all the time is the area of quality assurance, if you will, in pipelines, in continuous delivery pipelines, and attestation and object constraints and things of that sort. Does a package does a delivery package belong to a particular environment? Has it passed quality gate standards? How do you define those quality standards, and how do you enforce them? These are the things that we're having to constantly deal with. And in fact, I'm as a part of Tecton Pipelines, we have come up with a way of dealing with all of that. And that is the part I'm working on, and the part that wasn't really fully baked. That's why I wasn't able to give you my presentation. But I've got, I'm working on that. And as soon as I have something, actually, I can give you guys a demo. Still not completely baked yet. But that area of enforcement of quality gates is something I'd love for us to be able to speak about, or even talk about amongst us about standardization.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting, and yeah, welcome the presentations. I'm sure we'd be happy with a half-baked presentation as well, just to get the conversation going.
Yeah, I may just put myself on the schedule for just to give you the presentation, but I'm very much a show me what you can do kind of person, with demos, with live demos. That's just me. That's why I wanted to give you that, but I may just give you the presentation first and then do the demo for you later.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so again, as I mentioned, I updated the document today, so maybe we can kick off a discussion on mail list. That also gives people time to read what is proposed here, and everyone can go and update the document, either agreeing, disagreeing, or proposing areas, or proposing different way to tackle these things. And then we take another discussion during upcoming meeting and perhaps decide how to work with, or if we should work with these areas, and if this is the way we should work, like smaller work streams, 2-3 people coming together and driving this topic and so on. Because I really think we have enough knowledge about the projects to start this work. I'm not saying we know everything, but we have good basis to start working on these things. Okay, so if there is no other comment, that was the last topic. So checking last time, anyone wants to bring up any additional topic or comments about earlier topics? Okay, then Christy, and I see Vincent there. So I stop sharing and leave the rest to
you. Great. Let me just see, remember how to share my screen with Zoom. I think I can do this. Is my working best? Wait. Like this. Is this working? Can people see slides?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so thanks for having us. I roped Vincent into joining me to talk about this. Both of us have been very excited to be focusing recently on 2 parts of Tecton that haven't gotten a lot of attention in the past, and one of which is completely brand new, which are the hub and the catalog. So I'd like to talk about those today. I don't think it's going to be a super long presentation. Should have lots of time for questions. As a reminder, if you're not familiar with Tecton and what our goals are, Tecton's mission is to be the industry standard cloud-native CI/CD platform components and ecosystem, which is a bit of a mouthful and still kind of grammatically incorrect, but generally it is what we want. And so the catalog and hub portion that I'm going to talk about today is all about the ecosystem piece of this. It's all about the Tekton ecosystem. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Tekton's reusability model. So basically how tasks work and kind of how the catalog fits into that. So for our examples, let's pretend that we have kind of two general groups of people. We have a release engineering team who's responsible at a company for how software is delivered and deployed, and we have an application development team who is creating that software. That's not to say that this is how every team and company has to organize, but let's just say that we're talking about a company that has these two groups. So you could imagine that maybe at this company, there's a release engineering team. They're supporting many application development teams. Every application development team is writing multiple services, and the release engineering team has some requirements around the pipeline that they want these application developers to be using to deliver each of these three services. They want basically the same pipeline to be used. They don't want the application delivery team to be reinventing the wheel for every piece of that pipeline. And they have some mandatory steps they want to include. Like they want to make sure if we're building an image that vulnerability scanning is done for it. So looking at the pipeline that they might define, they want all of the teams to be using the same pipeline. They want to insert mandatory pieces into it. They want to have common logic that can be reused, and they want to be able to reuse even within the same pipeline, the same deploy logic for multiple destinations. So this is where Tekton tasks come in. Tekton tasks are kind of the fundamental reusability building block of Tekton. You can take tasks and assemble them into pipelines. So the idea behind the Tekton catalog is that this is a place where people can publish tasks that can be reused across many pipelines. At the moment, we're focusing on tasks. In the future, I think that Vincent's going to mention this a bit, but we're hoping to expand into more reusable pieces, for example, pipelines and maybe parts of Tekton triggers as well. But at the moment, we're focusing mostly on tasks. So you could imagine a catalog that has tasks like how to run Go test, how to do an image scan, how to do a canary deployment, and then the application development teams can use those tasks when they're putting together their pipelines. This is an example of some YAML from a task. A lot of it is not included here, so this is just kind of an overview. But this is basically what Tekton tasks look like. So here you can see that we have a task. It's called Go test. When you look at what it actually does, it's using a Golang image and it's doing what it says it does. It's running Go test. And then to actually use this, you'd be applying it to your Kubernetes cluster with kubectl. And in this example, we're using the Tekton CLI TKN to start that task running and stream the logs. And I want to talk just a little bit about how we make this reusable. So one of the ways that we make it reusable is that tasks can declare parameters, which are their inputs. So in this example, the test task takes a PKG parameter, which means that you can use the same task for testing multiple packages, because when we ultimately call Go test, we use that parameter. We also have the concept of outputs or results from tasks. So in this example, we have a task that runs Canico. If you're not familiar with Canico, it's a tool for building and pushing images. So here you could imagine that this task has a result called image, which is basically just a string, but that string could contain the exact URL and digest of the image that was just built. So if we wanted to put these pieces together into a pipeline, for example, in this pipeline, we have the first task that runs is referencing that Canico task that we were just looking at, which has an image result. And you can have other tasks in the pipeline take the result from that task and use it. So we can build the image using the Canico task that we maybe took from the catalog, and then we can use another task, ideally also from the catalog, to deploy it and link the result from the Canico task to a parameter that's in the deployment task. And something else that we're working on right now that's in progress but is pretty exciting is that we're looking at how to bundle tasks into OCI images. And the idea is that we can then actually store these tasks in image registries. So instead of requiring that you have to copy and paste a task definition somewhere and apply it to your Kubernetes cluster, you can, when you run pipelines, you can actually refer to tasks that live in an image registry, and that way We can easily version them, and we can even use digests if you want to make sure that you're running exactly the task that you expect to be running. So that was kind of a whirlwind overview of how reusability works with Tekton. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the catalog and hub projects. So the catalog is basically, the idea is to have one or more places where you can find really high quality tasks that are reusable, that you can use across many pipelines. So in this example, this is maybe a catalog that's specific to this individual company, but we also are going to have an official Tekton catalog that's part of the Tekton org and maintained by the people contributing to Tekton. So the catalog that we have right now is in the Tekton GitHub org. It's called catalog. This is a list of the tasks that have been contributed to it so far. So if you are interested in contributing a task, that would be great. Also, these are all the ones that are available that you can start using in your pipelines today. For 2020, some things that we're hoping to do are we want to add the component versioning that I was discussing via the OCI image registry so that we can actually publish these tasks to an OCI image registry and then you can just retrieve them. We want to make it so that you can indicate what versions of Tekton pipelines your tasks are compatible with. We're also looking at increasing our integration testing so that you can feel very confident when you're using something that's in the catalog that it's actually going to work as advertised. And we're using dog fooding to do that, so basically using Tekton to test the Tekton catalog tasks. We're also expanding this into multiple tiers. At the moment, the proposal is that we would have 3 tiers of tasks. Basically, we're trying to meet the requirements of making it so you can have really well-tested tasks that you can trust, with official being the most trustworthy because they're maintained by the Tekton community, and then having just kind of community tasks, which are sort of like people can kind of add them as much as they want, but they don't have to necessarily provide rigorous tests for those. And we're also adding the hub, which I will pass it over to Vincent to talk about. And I guess you could just tell me when to go to the next slide because I am, yeah, I'm sharing.
Yeah, it's going to be simpler. It's going to be simpler doing that. So yeah, let's talk a bit about the hub. So next slide. Yeah. So the main goal of the hub is to make it easy for people to discover official and community tasks, for them to create pipeline, and the asterisk there is because right now it's just tasks that are on the catalog, and thus it's just tasks that would show on the hub. But the long-term goal is anything that's any resource that can be reused. So some of the pipelines, some other objects under the Tekton components could also be on the hub. Next slide. And so right now, this is how it looks. We can show it live if you want. I have it deployed somewhere. But overall, this is kind of made on the same model of lots of other hub, Docker Hub, Helm Hub and stuff, where you would be able to search for those. See quickly what are the type of the tasks, what are the tiers. So as of here, it's just official tasks because this is based on the official catalog repo, which contains only official tasks. And so on the roadmap, if you can go to the next slide. On the roadmap, there's at least making sure we publish this, because right now it's a work in progress and it's not published anywhere, but publishing it on hub.tekton.dev most likely. Making sure we support multiple catalogs. So right now we are basing everything on top of Tekton CD catalog, but we want to make sure other companies, other vendors, and other community can have their own piece of catalog. So this is why we may want to support multiple catalog on the hub. Some are from the vendor, OpenShift, VMware, Google, whatever, and some from the community, either real community like NixOS, or I don't I put Mixwebs because I know this community, or even user-specific catalogs. And the third item, which is also really important, is API integration. We want to make sure that the hub has a very good API so that people can use the API to search for it to get the correct and the correct images or the correct metadata, so that they can use it inside their tool. The first integration we are thinking about is inside the components of Tekton itself, so TKN for the CLI, the dashboard, and others, but it could be for anything really. And yeah, that's about it for the hub. So I pass you back the mic, Christy.
Thanks, Vincent. So if you are watching this and you work on a CI/CD system, please consider supporting the Tekton catalog. That would be super amazing. Also, if you're interested, we have a working group that's actually starting later today. We're going to have our first meeting to talk about the hub and the catalog. So I put a link in here and I'll share these slides. But you can find in the Tekton community repo, you can find info about all of our working groups, including the catalog and hub working group. And then maybe I'll just, as the very last thing, I'm gonna open the staging hub. I assume it's okay to go to that because Vincent mentioned showing it, so I'm gonna go. Stop me if it's not okay. Here we go. Yeah, so this is the hub, and I particularly love this cat logo for our official tier tasks. Pretty cool. You can go in and see the docs and eventually install and rate them, and we'll have versions. It's really cool. Yeah, so does anybody have any questions?
Tracy asked this on chat, but I have the same question, which is where is the link that you're showing there? Is that accessible that someone can poke around on?
It should be, but it's like, it might be broken next week or the week after, depending on whenever it's our staging cluster right now. So it might break. If it breaks, we can send a new link later on.
I think that we're in the process of adding all of the code to the, I don't actually know what state that's in, but like I think because there was a proof of concept of the hub, which is what you're seeing there, and then we're migrating code over into this hub repo, yeah, and then I think the goal is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot to add the context there. The POC was developed inside Red Hat, and yeah, we're in the process of migrating the code from our Red Hat developer repo. I'll put the link there to this one, and we are also refactoring some stuff because it was a POC. So as all POC, there's some really bad code there. But yeah, it's in the process of migrating the code inside the Tekton Hub project.
And then eventually, I think the goal is that you'll be able to go to like hub.tekton.dev, and then you would see like the latest release of the hub there, but it's not up yet.
It's really cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, looks really good. Yeah, happy to. I know we've got similar kind of concepts with the whole Jenkins plugin infrastructure, so it's nice to see kind of you're thinking through the tiers and things like that. So yeah, always happy to. I'll poke around a bit more, and if anything think of, I'll let you know. But yeah, it looks really good.
Awesome, and a lot of this is completely in flux at the moment because we're kind of still putting together the proposals around like what tiers make sense, yeah, and what defines each tier. So if anyone from the Jenkins community is interested in like joining our working groups or reviewing any of that at any point, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I seem to recall having lots of conversations with folks around like marketplace governance. You know, Gareth Rushgrove talking about the model of what's the onus on like who looks after things, who's gonna come back and apply the security patch after a year of things sitting around and things. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see which way you're leaning in terms of is it heavily community managed and operated, or do we defer a lot to the catalog providers, the people creating the tasks and pipelines?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think our current thinking is that for the official tier, it would be the Tecton community would definitely be responsible for applying security patches and keeping things up to date and dealing with any bugs that come up. On the other extreme, the community side, I think that the assurances would be significantly less, if possibly none at all. And then in the middle, we have this verified concept, which we're kind of still trying to figure out. But what we would like is to make it possible for people to contribute things from the community, but then provide via some interface that we haven't quite figured out yet, but basically like provide sort of evidence or assurances that you have been applying security patches and that you have been running tests regularly, and maybe like the status of the last test that ran, and that kind of thing. But we're definitely still figuring it out. Great. Well, thank you very much for listening. And please, if you're interested in more, feel free to join all of our working groups, or even just lurk in the agenda docs if you don't want to commit to the working groups. Love to have your input.
Thank you, Christy. And I hope you can take your time to join future meetings as well. I know you said you are busy, but it is always great to see what's happening in Tecton. So please, anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was the last topic on the agenda. I just added another topic because this is I was thinking of talking about. But Linux Foundation uploads all the meeting recordings to CDF YouTube channel, and if you go to the channel, there are playlists after each of the SIGs and talk meetings as well. And if you click the SIG Interoperability playlist, you will see all the meetings except the very first one. Why I am talking about this is because we had presentations from many during our previous meetings, and you may want to go back and look at what we discussed there and what were the questions or what was the updates from projects or users. It's great to have those meetings there. So just browse through and see if you missed anything. And that was the last thing on the agenda. Anyone wants to bring up a last minute topic? Okay. Then our next meeting will be on 28th of May. And until that meeting, we will have the co-chair nominations and the discussion about the roadmap and the focus areas and the way to work with them. So until we meet in 2 weeks, I wish everyone a good day and healthy life. Thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.